Thank you, Alicia.
You're welcome. It was a little bit smoother for this meeting.
Well, you didn't have the computer deciding to do an update right as you were logging on, so all good. All right, I'll just remind everyone to mute themselves unless speaking. And I think I'm going to have to get my plug. Can you make it loud? There we go. Welcome, everyone. This is a public planning meeting dated April 24th, 24. This is a public meeting concerning proposed zoning bylaw amendments pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act, file C3-24, Javier Caca. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yep.
Okay. And C624, Gregory and Margot Ford. Any person or public body is entitled to attend the public meeting and make written or oral submissions in support of or in opposition to any of the proposed zoning bylaw amendments. Written comments should be submitted to the clerk, Lindsay Green. My name is Barbara DeBreen. I'm the deputy mayor. I'll just be going through the process on behalf of the planning department. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Southgate before the zoning bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of council of the Township of Southgate to the Ontario Land Tribunal. And in addition, they may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal. In the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. The first zoning bylaw amendment is file number C324, Javier Caca. The purpose of the application is to rezone the subject lands from a residential 2 and a residential 3-390 zone to a new residential 3 zone with an exception to permit 8 rental townhouse dwelling units. The proposed rezoning would include a definition of dwelling back-to-back townhouses and building regulations to allow up to 44% lot coverage. The effect of the proposed amendment would be to permit 8 back-to-back townhouse dwelling units on site with 4 units facing Doyle Street and 4 units facing Artemisia Street North. The location of the subject lands, Plan 480, Part Lot 1, RP 16R11106, Part 3, Geographic Village of Dundalk. The civic address currently is 221 Doyle Street. If I could just ask everyone to mute. There's a gentleman, Marco.
Yep.
Could you mute your microphone for a moment?
Sure.
Thank you. May I please have confirmation from the clerk that proper notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act?
Yeah, Chair Dobreen, proper notice was given in accordance with the Act. The sign was posted and notice was sent out to property owners within 120.
Thank you, Lindsay. I will now ask our junior planner, Victoria Mance, to review correspondence received from commenting agencies. I don't see
Fair. Good afternoon, everybody. I'll start out with the Grey County comments. We have some comments from them, including that although it exceeds the minimum density requirement, they suggest that township staff determine if there's sufficient municipal parking or park space within walking distance of the development, given the lack of outdoor amenity space. Also, the functional servicing and stormwater management report suggests the existing municipal water and sewer infrastructure should be sufficient. They also ask for a more detailed technical review by township engineering staff. They also encourage some use of rain gardens as proposed to manage stormwater on site, and they recommend addition of a holding provision as well until properties are merged to issue building permits. As well, ensure that the proposal is for rental purposes and the applicant is not seeking a condominium exemption from the county. Again, just to summarize, sufficient public park space within walking distance, low impact development opportunities are explored to reduce stormwater runoff, and a holding provision to be added prior to building permit approval. Further comments, Enbridge Gas had no concerns, as well as the GRCA no concerns. Public Works, we received some comments back in January and then updated comments as of April. They include no road widening necessary. They ask that residential entrances are required to include curb cuts and repair, as well as splitting water and sewer services may be altered or hook up to main install at developer's cost to meet their adjustment needs, and complete width of asphalt to be restored for surveying excavation at developer's cost on Artemisia and Doyle Street, as well as servicing design to be peer reviewed by Triton Engineering. They also identify wellhead protection area D and road drainage concern for stormwater outlet at property line. Fire also includes that the development requires a ladder truck apparatus, and we did not receive, from my knowledge, any written public comments.
Thank you, Victoria. Would you, there were no public comments. Are there any questions or discussion from council at this time? I see John is on the line. Go ahead, Joan, if you have a question or a comment.
Yes, question. I was just wondering if all those requests from the agencies have been met, or if it's ongoing to meet with the requirements of the County of Grey and some of what Victoria just said. Sorry, my mic is going back and forth.
Victoria, do you want to elaborate? It being the public meeting, these are comments that need to be considered. If any of them have already been addressed, or if this still would be coming back, just to explain the process there.
Yeah, through you, Chair, it would be comments that would need to be further addressed following the next meeting. So these are something that the developer has to take into account and include, and also we would include in our report in future as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did have some concerns with regard to the 44% lot coverage and putting 8 units in this area. While I understand the need for higher density and rental housing, I would encourage, and I think it was touched on the county comments, whereby it remains rental. We have had an experience where someone was to build a semi-detached and it was going to be a rental, and once it was built, they came for a severance to sell the lots. So that would are there things in play that can prohibit that? And would there be any affordable units within those 8 back-to-backs? Would be a question to be considered down the road, I suppose. Victoria?
Yeah, I'll probably rely on Bill for this question, but I believe it can be part of the agreement, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, yes, Chair DeBreen. Obviously, township staff still have to prepare our report, and that would be coming back at a future council meeting. We have sent the functional servicing report to the Public Works Department and our Triton Engineering side, and they have provided some preliminary comments on that, and those will all come forward with our report. As for whether it can or can't be written that it's rental, you can provide in the zoning that it is rental housing only. I'd like to explore maybe the holding provision and just maybe talk to the county a little bit about what they're thinking there, but I think the holding provision may be helpful in this area. We haven't come to a conclusion as a department on whether we feel the 8 units works or not. I think the county's had a good look at it and understand their approach, and Victoria and I and the engineers in Triton and Public Works people and so forth will prepare our report once we hear the information today.
Thank you. I'll now ask the applicant or agent, if they are present, to please identify themselves and state your name for the record. Would you like to make any representation on your application? I know that there is a presentation in the agenda.
That's correct.
Would you like to present that at this time?
Yes, that's the plan. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'll do that. And I have,
I'm just going to ask, can the presentation be shared on the screen?
Okay.
Lindsay or Alicia?
Yeah, so I can either give you control to share your screen, or I can share it on my end. Which would you prefer?
I would prefer to get the control.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
Very good. Welcome.
Thank you.
You should have the ability now to share your screen.
Yeah,
Is it Mr. Punya Sagar?
that's correct. Yeah. Yeah, let me introduce myself once again. I'm Punya Sagar Marahata. I'm the project planner, manager at White Rose Park, managing this project. I have beside me Victor De Palma, Senior Vice President of White Rose Park. He would be here. He would be happy to respond to any technical questions if you have. And I don't have to explain or introduce White Rose Park for the township. I guess like we have phase 1 and phase 2 completed over there, and we are coming up with phase 3 subdivision right next to the proposed site. And Marco is the landowner who is also online. If you have any questions regarding the proposal, he might be able to answer as well. Without further delays, I can start my presentation. We can see the lot there, like it's a snip from the Google map where the property is, and you can see the subdivision I was talking earlier as well. So that's to the left of your screen. So that's where we're proposing, and address, as mentioned earlier as well, it's 221 Doyle Street, but it has, as mentioned earlier, it has 3 different lots. So we are proposing something on all those 3 lots. So that's the plan, and currently it's zoned R2 and R3 390, I guess, if I'm not mistaken. And a townhouse is permitted there. That's not a problem. The question was more on like back-to-back townhouses, which we wanted to amend the zoning bylaw to allow that. So this is something we have attached in our planning justification report as well, where maximum lot coverage is, yes, like maximum permitted lot coverage is 35%, whereas we are proposing 44%. It's because like if we are proposing back-to-back townhouses, there won't be any rear yard setback requirement. So that automatically will add up to that percentage. And minimum rear yard would be no, because like it's back-to-back. So that's the rationale. And minimum percentage amenity, I think, oh, sorry, it's so blurred, like so there, and amenity areas, we're not proposing any amenity areas on site, but like there's some balconies. That's something we discussed with planners earlier, and they're okay with it. So that, and what the one lot of like four townhouses would be facing Artemisia, and 4 townhouses would be facing to Doyle Street. So that's the plan. We meet the front yard setback, we meet the side yard setback. We didn't meet rear yard setback because it's back-to-back townhouses. That's how it's planned. This is the typical floor plan. I don't want to go in details, but like we have 1 parking space within the garage and 1 on the driveway. We can park that. So that's how we meet parking requirement for 2, and the required is 1.5. This is the second floor. It's unit plan. So what are the variances from the existing bylaw? Back-to-back towns instead of conventional street townhouses. That's what we think is the best land use in similar situation. It's not only applicable for this, but like in the township as a whole, I think like if there are any such opportunities where there are 2 municipal streets separated by one single lot, there's good opportunity to come up with back-to-back townhouses so that the intensification could be done. And the other variance was about the lot coverage, which I discussed earlier, like 44% as opposed to 35% because of the reduced lot size to accommodate more units on a smaller lot. And there's no rear yard setback. That's the other variance we're requesting. Like minimum rear yard is 0 meters as opposed to 10 meters because it's back to back. Play space and amenity area, it's too small lot for this. But I mean, if there is anything that our landowner and municipality can come with an agreement, like there's no harm willing to negotiate with cash in lieu in that case. And reduced parking requirement, rational one, like reduced, it's not reduced parking requirement anymore. Like this is something I borrowed from my previous slide. Sorry about that. There's no reduced parking requirement for it because like we meet 1.5 parking spaces there. Summary of amended bylaw is to avoid split zoning of the property with R2 and R3 390, and rezone the property to R3 with exception to accommodate back-to-back townhouses as defined below. So I just drafted a definition. I mean, we're open to work with this municipal staff to draft it in a proper way that the message is correctly conveyed. So it's just a draft. Dwelling back-to-back townhouse shall mean one group of 4 or more attached dwelling units of 2 or 4 stories sharing side and back walls with neighboring units separated vertically, which have independent entrances at ground level on at least one side of the building developed on block of land. So that's how we propose the definition of back-to-back townhouses. And to conclude, proposed development is complementary to the municipal goal because the municipal goal seeks support for residence development within the existing communities. So it's within the existing communities. And the other one is municipal and provincial goal to encourage market-driven housing development within urban boundaries that benefits the community. So that's another rationale. So approval of zoning bylaw amendments supporting the municipality's goal and objectives as stated in county and local official plans. That's the other conclusion I draw. Section 5.2.1.23 of the Grey County says that intensification through relief from one or more provisions of township's zoning bylaw for the intensification. So we are in the right track, I guess. Like we are proposing intensification through the relief of the existing zoning bylaw. And proposed development, we believe that it's appropriate to the site. It contributes to meeting the community's aspirations, and it's a project with a merit. So the landowner and developer are looking forward to working with the municipality in a good faith to accomplish the success of these applications and occupancy ready by end of 2024. That's our goal. And for that matter, like we had communicated with municipal staff, and we were in agreement that, like, I mean, the cursory review for building permit package could be done. So it's currently under review, although we are waiting for the amendment to the zoning bylaw, but like if it's amended accordingly, like our building permit package can get approved as soon as possible. That way, like we can build on time and occupancy ready by next year. The last one is we request the approval of these amendments. That's pretty straightforward. And there was a question about like whether it's rental or whether the landowner has any plan to come back with the condominium development. The engineering is designed in such a way that it's challenging to do so. So right from the very beginning, the landowners are interested in developing rental townhouses over there because like that's their retirement income as they're planning to. So I mean, if anything further than that, maybe Marco, the landowner, can explain on it. But like as far as we know, it's rental townhouses. on that note, I have concluded my presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask, and maybe Victor and I can respond to any questions there.
Okay, if you stop sharing your screen, we'll be able to see everyone again. Thank you very much. I want to thank you for your presentation and open it up for additional questions or clarification, either from our planners or council, before I move on. Okay. Oh, I see that Monica Singh Soares has joined us. Welcome. Do you have any questions, Monica?
No, I just wanted to mention I was here around 1:04 p.m., but my camera wasn't working, but no questions besides that.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So there are some concerns that have been outlined as far as height of these units. I'm looking at your presentation and it appears to be 3 stories. So you have the garage and then what would be the height? Those things would be worked out in the deal, and Martin Shipston is here as well. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. We are compliant, as I can tell you, that we are compliant to the existing height requirement.
Okay,
where we
thank
did
you.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anyone who's present who would like to make a submission in support of this application? Is there anyone present who would like to make a submission in opposition of this application?
Yes, I would like to speak, please.
Okay, if you could just state your full name and address for the clerk. And if you'd like to turn your camera on, if you have the internet capability. If not, go ahead, please. Alyssa Sparling.
Yes,
Sorry,
hi, my name is
Alyssa.
Alyssa Sparling.
Alyssa,
Yep.
I'm
it's
sorry,
Lindsay.
hang on one.
We're
Go
not
ahead.
quite on the file you've signed up for yet, Alyssa.
Oh, okay,
Oh.
that's fine.
Thank you, Lindsay. We'll come back to you. We are on file C324 with regard to Doyle and Artemisius. No, sorry, I'm on the wrong file.
Unless Alyssa,
That's
what,
correct.
I want to make sure maybe I misunderstood which one you signed up for. So maybe this is the right one. Just let me know.
Yes, I actually live in the house that's on 221 Doyle Street.
Okay, so it is. That's my apologies then, Chair. Go ahead, Alyssa.
Okay, no worries. All right, Alyssa, you have the floor. If you could just, so you live at 221 Doyle Street?
Yes, I live here alongside my fiance and our son. We rent the house here and we have rented here for just shy of 6 years now. Although we would be disheartened to see the house be taken down, we understand that the town is ever growing. We just ask that we're served with an appropriate eviction notice, which in this case will be an N13 form, and that will give my family 120 days, I believe, to prepare our move.
Okay.
And that's everything. Thank you for your time.
That would be up to the property owner, I would imagine, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Okay, where are we in the agenda here? Is there anyone present who'd like to speak in opposition? Please note you'll be required to state your full name. We're there already. Are there any questions or further discussion from members of council? Martin. You're muted.
Yeah,
there
I'm
you
just
go.
unmuting. Thank you. With the lack of space around the building and it's 44% of the lot, I really like the idea of the rain gardens for helping stormwater, because there's a lot of roof space there that's gonna put a lot of water into the system. Rain gardens are usually only up to 10% of the area creating the runoff. So that's something to look at too. Even if those rain gardens are permissible, even when it doesn't have much area for recreation or going outside. Other than that, I think parking could be an issue, and the holding provision, that could be something to be looked at. But again, Bill said he was going to look at that in more detail. Other than that, I think everything else was covered by the presentation and questions before. So they were just my comments, Chair.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions from council at this time? We continue to have this concern with regard to parking and snow removal or snow placement. I believe those will be addressed by staff and going forward before the staff report comes. These are all concerns that we've expressed time and again. As far as filling the lot coverage to 44% or anything greater, even at 35%, it's pretty tight when you start trying to remove snow. As White Rose is very familiar with the snow that is possible up here. So
Sure.
we'll rely on staff to help us and guide us through this. It's a lot of units. We certainly know that we do need rentals. Is this the right place for them? That will come back in the staff report. So if there's no other questions, we'll move on to the file C624 Gregory and Margot Ford. The purpose of the application is to rezone an 864 square meter triangle of land being purchased from the township from an open space 129 zone to a residential type 5 zone R5, and to allow a garden suite known as a granny flat to be erected on the subject lands as a temporary use. The effect of the proposed amendment is to rezone a triangle piece of land being purchased from the township to the same R5 zoning applicable to the subject land and allow a garden suite south and east of the existing residence on the subject land. Location of the subject lands is Plan 16M5, Lot 33, Geographic Township of Egremont, Township of Southgate, Civic Address 40 Uncle Tom Crescent. May I please have confirmation from the clerk that proper notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act?
Yes, Chair Dobreen, proper notice was given in accordance with the Act. The sign was posted and notice was sent out to residents within 120 meters.
Thank you. I'll ask the planner to review any comments received by members. I will now ask the junior planner, Victoria Mance, to review correspondence received from commenting agency and written comments received by any members of the public.
Thank you,
Victoria
Chair.
or Bill?
Oh, sorry. Bill, go ahead.
Chair Dobreen, Victoria and I decided to split this one.
Okay.
So I'll do the comments for this one.
Okay.
In terms of agency comments, Public Works advised they did not require road widening and that this is a load restricted road. Enbridge Gas did not have any comments on the application, although they reserved the right for further comment later. The County of Grey reviewed the application. They noted that the lands are rural in their official plan, and they do allow additional residential units in the main house. But the county also encourages development of garden suites, and they're to be considered a temporary use. And the bylaw is not to exceed 20 years. That's according to the county official plan. They've identified the location of the dwelling on the proposed site plan. They don't seem to have any objections to that. There's no ecological or transportation concerns that have been expressed. And they mentioned that there are aggregate resources in that area, and that may overlap, but this is outside their aggregate resource area, and they don't have concerns about that. There were also 2 private letters that came in that are loaded on the township website for this. The first letter is from Jan Wilson. She's writing regarding the application by Mr. and Mrs. Ford. She's concerned about the precedent that may be set by permitting garden suites in the subdivision, as it opens up the opportunity to everyone in that area, and that council has the ultimate responsibility. Is this the kind of thing that should be encouraged? Do we want multiple residential units and garden suites on 1 or 2 acre estate lots, and will the infrastructure support it? environmental impacts, green space? Will it enhance livability? She notes that garden suites are a common way to create homes for elderly family members, and that elderly need the housing, and it's hard to find homes in today's unaffordable market. Would this be for them, seniors, or for rental units? Can council control or police who would be permitted to live in the units? And no, one garden suite may not alter the outline of the subdivision. Further approvals would certainly destroy the character of it, and please be careful making your decisions on how it might impact the homes and property values. The second letter is from multiple people. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13, I would say, couples that have signed. It says it's addressed to council regarding the application by the Fords. They understand the rezoning is a condition of the agreement of purchase and sale. The neighborhood opposes this rezoning on the grounds that the split zoning is legal, and as a result of the Ford's complete disregard for the restrictions that are registered on this plan when building their residence. There are 36 houses in the subdivision. All of them but one have designed and built their houses conforming to the rules and restrictions that were tied to this subdivision. Despite the fact that we too could have built smaller or less expensive, perhaps council could educate on whose job it is to enforce these covenants. I guess these are restrictive covenants, and they've laid them out in the letter that allows only one family dwellings, no garage or accessory building, no building on any lot unless exterior walls are primarily brick, no building designed and constructed unless the exterior appearance is in keeping with the other homes. So those are 2, 3, or 4 covenants, restrictive covenants they've identified. They believe that the house does not comply with the covenants and that the garden suite would not comply with those. They say that if council decides to move forward in allowing the garden suite, that would restrict this suite from being marketed and rented out as a bed and breakfast or an Airbnb. And they want to leave the parcel that is currently zoned open space as is, so that additional units can't be added later. And the questions they have are: was a reference plan prepared, and can it be circulated? Was a consent completed as part of the sale of lands? And then we understand the residents are not here to attack the owners. However, we do feel the township owes residents the right to the same rules that were not followed in construction of current buildings. And I don't, Chair, did you want me to read the names of all the people that signed that, or?
Will the letters be added to the minutes or to the files? They weren't included in the agenda, but they may have come in a little late. Yes, Lindsay.
Yes, Chair O'Brien, they were received after the agenda was published, but they are already online with the file, and they can be uploaded after with the minutes as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
That concludes the agency and public comments that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or discussion from council at this time? Martin?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it was interesting to hear about the covenants and what kind of buildings. That's something to look into. Perhaps that would have been done, set up by the actual builder. It is an estate subdivision, so it sounds like it's almost a gated community, and gated communities do have rules like that. So that would be something interesting to look into. The one concern, along with the County of Grey comments, permissible so long as servicing is available. And I'm looking at the plan with the lot numbers 33 and 34, and the granny suite is just behind the garage, back from the driveway. but the septic for the house is on the other side. So how would that hook up? Because all those buildings in that subdivision are septic. They're estate lots. They're not municipally linked. So how would they go about servicing? Easy enough to bring hydro from the garage, but that is one major thing that I'm looking at. So it's the first thing I thought, are they going to put it on that triangle, which is close to the septic, but it's on the other way on the other side of the house. So that's just one concern for me, how that would work for the people. Other than that, they're my only comments, Chair.
Thank you. Any other members of council have questions or comments at this time? Monica?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm not sure exactly who would be able to answer this question, but just in thinking about what Bill was covering, just through you, Chair, will this garden suite be a part of the affordable housing initiatives or contribute to the range of housing options available in Southgate?
Through the chair to the councillor, I mean, the short answer is yes. I guess it could depend on how any agreement for this proposed suite is structured. I will say that just over a week ago, a new provincial planning statement came out, and the province continues to aggressively push additional residential units on rural lands, agricultural lands, and on lands within settlement areas where there's full municipal services. So we, the staff, have begun a report on additional residential units. They are allowed under the township's official plan already, but now, since the township official plan was adopted, the province is allowing up to 3 units on certain properties, including prime agricultural lands. They have removed the restriction that said you couldn't be more restrictive than that in a local official plan. So council will, I think, have some right, if they don't like 3 units on every property in the rural areas, they may be able to restrict that. But I think all the letters even infer that this seems to be the way that we're going with housing, to basically get it wherever we possibly can. Certainly, this has been a long-standing thing to allow for granny flats and suites like that for family members. So that's now evolving to family members who may not be seniors or people who just need a place to live. So this is what we're being asked to accommodate in our neighborhoods, including estate residential areas. So the short answer is yes, it is contributing to housing. But I mean, I think the neighbors have a point that what does that mean for every estate residential lot in this particular subdivision or everywhere else? Certainly we'll need to know that the private sewage and water is adequate. We're talking about a couple living in a house and a mother, perhaps. You could have that many or more people living in a single family home in this area as well. So it's a challenging issue, but I will say that it's a proposal that is consistent with what the township official plan proposes and is very consistent with what the province is asking everybody in Ontario to allow on almost every lot that exists.
Go ahead, Monica.
Thank you. Just a follow-up. I'm going to see if I can kind of ask it together and then possibly it can come together. So thank you for that. And just to the point of the other concerns that are there, I do understand. So with that in mind, if we look at infrastructure adjustments, are there any anticipated needs for infrastructure adjustments or improvements as a result of this new development? And how will we ensure that in terms of aesthetic integration, that there'll be necessary steps that will be taken to ensure that the garden suites design is aesthetically integrated into the existing streetscape? That might help with the neighbors' concerns as well.
Yeah, some of these things are can be covered under the zoning. Architectural features and that sort of thing are less easy to cover. It could be in some form of an agreement with the Fords if they were interested in signing such a thing. It could be done that way. I will say, as far as the servicing, the private servicing, the provincial policy requires that when a new official plan is done or reviewed, that we look at the implications of private service development. So water, well water and septic systems, and how having too many or whether they're impacting the environment, that needs to be looked at. I don't think the township wants to get into servicing, even with a communal system or a municipal system, these areas, because having several systems all over your municipality, especially a rural one, is a challenge for maintenance. So we have to be very careful that the private water and sewer is always adequate, and we're required to review that whenever we look at our official plan and whenever proposals like this come forward. The covenants are interesting. The chief building official, if the zoning is compliant, the chief building official can issue permits. There is a rule called other applicable law, and I have to refresh my memory on where covenants stand as far as that goes. My belief is that those are private matters between the landowners and the developers, and I'm not sure that the municipality is bound to enforce the restrictive covenants, although it's certainly relevant for the neighbors to bring it up. I don't know that it's enforceable by the municipality. It would need to be enforceable in some other fashion, I believe. But when we bring our report back for this, we will address that matter more clearly.
Thank you. Martin, you unmuted?
Yes, I
Go ahead.
did. Yeah, Bill, you just mentioned, and again, hello this morning. Now, where's my question? Oh, you mentioned the policy from the provincial government, and when it comes to sewer that are not on municipal, because of the far away, because the granny suite is on the other side, is there anything in those policies that have a subsection where the province realizes there could be a problem with too many septics? Is there provisions in their policies to state that it's okay to put composting toilets in or anything like that? Because that would certainly change the outlooks of the granny flats and the whole complexity of or complexion, I should say, of an estate subdivision. Or they go into that detail?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bill.
Through the chair of the councillor, they don't get into the detail about composting toilets and other technologies in the policy statement. There may be things in the building code that we could ask the chief building official about, whether that can provide relief. As far as the ability to use private water and sewer systems, years ago, not too long ago, a 3 years ago, there used to be a servicing hierarchy, which said that everything had to be on municipal services, and if it couldn't be on municipal services, it had to be on communal or services, and then partial services, and that private water and sewer were the last resort. But those provisions have been taken out in recent years, and the province is a lot more aggressive on trying to create housing units in rural areas and agricultural areas. They did back off a little bit as far as multiple lot creation and other things, and I will be reporting to council on the new planning statement on the 30th. But so there are less restrictions on the ability to use private well and water, and a real encouragement to get housing units wherever we can get them. But they are asking that municipalities continue to review the environmental impact of them, and as official plans are reviewed, and to look at whether other forms of servicing could be accommodated if there are problems with private well and septic. It's a long answer, but I think the playing field has definitely changed.
Yes, before you go back to Monica, Joan has your hand up as well. I do want to touch on the additional residential units. the as of right, you did touch on them being on full services. These are private wells and septics, so it isn't classified as municipal services. I'm not sure if there's a distinction, Bill, but if we go to the PPS for some time, we have allowed additional residential units as an attached to the existing home or residence, so they could expand on the home. They could put an additional residential unit in the above the garage or in an accessory dwelling. An accessory structure, which would be the detached garage, is a potential. And a granny suite is the only option that has a time limit on it, which seems kind of strange because you put in a fair amount of effort and money to make it secure and somewhat permanent. If you have to add a septic and a well to service it, then it would have all of those studies that comes when you bring your planning report forward, correct, Bill?
That's right, Madam Chair. You are correct that the additional residential units are now, as of right, allowed in areas where there's water and sewer, and that's a total of 3 units on on qualifying single-family, semi-detached, and townhouse properties that are individually owned. And we're addressing that, the rules that council will be able to put in our pending report. What's different is that they did not mandate additional residential units in rural and agricultural areas yet, but they've made very definite statements in their new policies, and they've made subtle changes to the Development Charges Act and so forth, that these units would be exempt from development charges, so they wouldn't have to pay them. So they're coming. We have to address it with council. They're coming to rural and prime agricultural areas. I think that you will have some latitude there, which you don't have for lands that are with full municipal services.
One thing that we did do is amend our zoning. I think it was the zoning or official plan to allow secondary suites within the agricultural and rural zones, as long as they can be serviced through their private systems. But we didn't go as far as allowing up to 3, but the province may have something else to say. So thank you. I'll go to Joan and then Monica.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bill, good afternoon, everyone. Bill just answered a part of my question, so I don't need to ask that again. And as Bill stated, it is very challenging. And listening to the comments from the residents and talking about the covenant, I know we'll get more information on that. But also, Bill, for the granny suite, is it restricted to family, or is just I'm building this granny suite and I can rent it to anyone?
They're typically restricted to family members, but honestly, under provincial law, if push came to shove and someone else moved in there, I would doubt that we would be able to have them removed. We may be able to, if it were an issue, have it removed after the 10-year period, but you're really not able to distinguish people on the basis of their membership in a family or not, frankly. But granny suites have historically been tied to family members, and that's kind of what happens. But if granny moved on and someone else wanted to move in there within the 10-year period, we probably couldn't prohibit that.
Oh, you're muted,
Thank
Joan.
you. Thank you.
Okay. And I believe it's 20 years. I know there was a 10-year, but I believe we allow up to 20.
You're correct, Madam Chair. It's a 10-year agreement with an option to extend for 10.
Thank you.
You may have done 20-year ones. Yeah, I'm not sure. But.
Yeah. And I'll go to Monica now.
Thank you so much. Just for a point of clarification, just through you, Chair, again, to Bill, if you were to summarize the main concerns of the neighbors. Just to have like, because I know that you were reading a few of those there. What would you say is the main concern that's really pressing? Because it's, from what I gleaned from what you were saying, is that some of the concerns are not necessarily enforceable. And also, this is where we are headed in terms of the initiatives for building. And it's very likely that this is possibly something that is going to be, for lack of a better word, trending. This is the kind of the way the housing trends are going. I'm just trying to understand what, I know there may be some tweaks that are needed, but what is the main concerns that you would say is major concerns that the neighbors are having? I know that I think it was like on that street, this is the only location that would have a granny suite. That it would, they're asking that council would enforce that it would not be something that could be rented out. And but what is the main concern?
Well, I mean, sometimes it's challenging to characterize other people's comments as to what's sort of priorities and what's not. But I think you picked out a couple of them that are pretty good. I will say though that as far as new zoning and official plan provisions that go in for additional residential units, they're not appealable. So the province is, in fact, in this new Bill 185 is just starting to come out. They're removing appeal rights, and they've already removed appeal rights on certain certain consents, and they've removed appeal rights for additional residential units, and there probably won't be appeal rights for things like this coming in the future. So that doesn't mean that neighbors can't have concerns and shouldn't express them, but I mean, it's just a symptom of what the province is doing with housing right now, that even if council did approve something like this in the future and there's neighborhood concerns, they may not be able to appeal to the OLT. That's not the case in this one. I think it would be best to try and resolve these concerns and work with the applicants. But yeah, it's hard to characterize. I think the impact on, if everyone had one, and the impact on the effectiveness of well and private septic are important issues that we need to address. I'm not sure it's important that this applicant address those all, but we certainly need to have a handle on it going forward.
Thank you, Bill. I do want to give Mr. and Mrs. Ford an opportunity to, and we're asking a lot of questions which you may actually be able to address for the concerns. I did want to point out that with regard to the open space land that is to be rezoned, that was a condition of sale. And yes, it was circulated. The plan, it was put up for, Lindsay, give me the right terminology. We declared it surplus. We put it out there. It was open for anyone to bid. It made sense that only there would be one individual that would benefit from that. And that the application was completed with a condition that it be rezoned to avoid it being used for any other purpose. Lindsay, is there anything else that you would like to clarify or help in that regard? Because it was mentioned in there, besides, you know, whether or not we allow bed and breakfasts or Airbnbs and things that can be addressed before the planning report.
Sure, through you, Chair Dobreen. I mean, with Bill's help, I'll try to, I think there's two parts here. It was a combined application. Obviously, the rezoning of the triangle, we put together under one application, just basically to make that easier. I believe, Bill, is why that was done that way. The triangle process was declared surplus with our sale of land and other disposition bylaw, and it followed that process as we would with any sale of township property. So I took quite a few reports to council at the time, and that triangle, the Fords wished to purchase that triangle because they've made investments for landscaping in that area and were wanting to make further investments. So that was the reason for coming forward to purchase that triangle. So yes, it was declared surplus. It was advertised. technically, for lack of a better word, was landlocked to the Ford. So obviously no one else would have put a bid in on that because it was not a big enough parcel to do anything with. The now, Bill, you might have to jump in here. The reason for the rezoning, I'll let you jump on that, but that was a condition of the sale. So the sale has been approved by council, and it's just waiting finalization of this zoning.
Thank you, Lindsay.
If I may, I think Lindsay did a great job, but I mean, if the property is acquired by the Fords, it should be in the same zone as their main residential property. And so that's why it was included. The issues around, I don't think they need that land to put their granny suite in, but it certainly could provide a function if they're planning on landscaping it to, help screen the proposed use if that were a concern. So, but they don't need it to do their granny suite, but it makes sense to have it in the same zone because it's going to be, if it is in fact eventually sold and joined to this property.
Okay. I'm going to ask Mr. and Mrs. Ford if they would like to chime in here. Council will have another opportunity to speak, as will other people on the call. Hello. Sorry for the wait.
Can you hear us okay?
We sure can.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and thank you all for your comments. Some were quite revolutionary. We'd never heard before. But I guess to be clear, that triangle piece of land was strictly for some landscaping. We want to put up some big trees, and that's all our aim is, and that's all our aim was for. A reference plan was prepared to answer some of those questions, and that was part of that declaring it surplus. So that's all we're doing in the triangle, is some landscaping. The granny suite, we weren't aware of the subdivision covenants. That's the first we've ever heard of that. It's a bit of a shock. The property was developed and sold to us by the subdivision developer, who presumably would be aware of the subdivision covenants. He approved our building plan, and as well as Southgate. So we have no idea what people are talking about, these covenants. That's a surprise to us. So the septic system, because the granny suite is going to be higher in elevation, it will quite easily flow, so to speak, from the granny suite down to the existing septic system. The existing septic system was made larger than it needs to, because there's only my wife and I here right now. So we will be proving that when we go for our building permit. The well is more than adequate to supply water to our existing house and the granny suite. And I guess to be clear, the granny suite is for my wife's mother. That is the whole subtext to it. We're building a 600 square foot house for her mother. She is here every day as it is, but she's getting to an age where she can't drive so well. So my wife would rather park her here next to our existing house. And that there's no hidden agenda, folks, just a granny suite for grandma. And the only thing that we were going to ask for was that people keep talking about this 20-year lifespan. There's a lot of money that goes into building these little houses. They're not giveaway items. And we would like the 20-year lifespan be made a permanent lifespan. That is our request. And that's really only our points to answer, hopefully, some of the concerns that have been raised today, some of which we've never heard before, especially the covenants.
Yeah.
I'm certain that the planner will be reaching out, and these letters, as we know, weren't in the agenda. They're on the website, so we'll be unpacking all of those questions. This is what this meeting is for, to hear questions and comments, so that the planner can address them according to our official and zoning bylaws. The 20-year has always been in effect. I've also questioned it myself, especially with the investment required of a granny suite when you could actually expand on your home to build a permanent secondary suite that would have no time frame. So it might be something that that we encourage residents to consider as an option now that it is permitted. Are there any other questions from, there goes Monica?
Thank you so much. And just through you, Chair, to our residents there, greetings and thank you for being here. Just had a question. What would be the alternative for your, is your mommy?
No, my wife's mother.
Your mommy? Okay. What would be the alternative if this wasn't built?
She lives in an apartment right now, so she'd stay there, but it involves either her or I traveling for us to connect. So that's what we were trying to avoid, that I could check on her daily just by walking out my door and into hers, instead of having to drive to her place. And then maybe trying to avoid long-term care when it comes that time. So, you know, we could take care of her here. And she has lived in our home for a couple of months because there was a fire in the apartment building. So we know that we can't have her living in our home unless we were to expand our home, and we don't really want to do that. We would rather build a little flat for her so she has her own privacy, and we do as well. So yeah, that's the answer to it.
Just thank you for sharing that. I know with the pressing issues with long-term care and ensuring that with aging parents and taking care of seniors, I can understand certainly like these pressing issues and the heart of the matter.
Thank you. Is there anyone present who would like to make a submission in support of the application? Is there anyone online that would like to make a submission in opposition of this application? Martin, you've unmuted. Do you have a question?
More of a comment.
Just a second, Barb.
Sorry. Yeah, I see. Miss Justin Sheik. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Sheik, Justin. Yep. Yep. Sorry, I'm a little bit of the
having a little audio issue. Is it just me, Lindsay, or
valleys?
No, I think it's Justin's
Sorry, can you guys
connection just isn't great.
Yeah, you know what? I'll log off and log back on and try it again.
Well, if you just turn your video off, you may get a better audio.
Okay. How can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Let's give that a go.
Sure.
Go ahead.
2011.
Sorry, no,
no, it's not. Maybe Justin, maybe try logging off and logging back in.
Sure, I'll try. Thanks. Sorry about that.
Thank you. We'll we will stand by until you reconnect. Is there anyone else online that wanted to speak to the file?
Am I able to speak?
Yes, state your name and address for the record, and we'll let you speak to the file.
Okay, my name is Jane Coburn, and I am 25 Sparberry Street in Mount Forest. Our backyard would face the Fords. So I understand what you're saying as far as, yes, the government is allowing for more housing. Within what the Fords are asking for, are we able to see what type of proposed granny suite they are planning to build? And my next question would be, the application says temporary. Temporary always used to mean like a mobile home, something that came on wheels and then would be removed after a certain amount of time.
I can actually say that these granny suites are not mobile. They're meant to be temporary in time frame, but they are usually on a slab with and anchored to the ground to avoid them blowing away. There's a great investment into putting into a granny suite for, as the Fords had indicated, a short period of time. So, Bill, did you want to elaborate on that, on those questions?
Madam Chair, I think you did great. That's I would just say that granny suites and temporary use, they're kind of terms that are very quickly becoming outdated, and really based on what's been said today, you know, this is going to be there for 20 years and or more, and it won't have wheels. It won't look like a mobile home, I don't think. And I think that's what maybe traditionally what used to happen is something would be wheeled on there that would be there for a few months or a few years and then pulled away. And these are becoming much more permanent, much more attractive. They tend to fit in with what the house looks like, and as the Ford said, they're going to landscape around it. So yeah, it's the temporary and granny flats are kind of dated. I think really what we're dealing with is a secondary suite on this property.
Okay, and this secondary suite is not going to be on the triangle, correct? It is going to be between the existing home and the existing shed?
That's right.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's mostly what the neighborhood was worried about. Is it something that's going to come in, look like a mobile home? It's going to be constructed on site and will have the same look of the Ford's home now. Is that what we're kind of looking at?
I'm seeing a nod from Mrs. Ford that that is their intent. And it will be placed, from what we can tell from the site plan here, the diagram is it's going to be placed somewhat back and off from the garage, that the attached garage. It will not be, and it would not be permitted to be in front of the house.
Oh, okay. So the garage that's already existing on the home, that's where the granny suite would kind of tuck back in there.
Getting nods, yes.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Martin, before I go to you,
Yeah,
I
no worries.
believe that Justin is back online. Let's give that a shot.
Yeah, thank you for your patience there. I think that maybe it's working a little bit better now because I don't feel like you guys are blipping out like you were before. Like I said before, I've been in that subdivision since 2011 and built my house from scratch on the lot. And me and many of the other people in that subdivision had an extensive list of restricted covenants that we had to abide by in order to build our properties and our houses. Obviously, when 13 years ago or whatever, it was probably the first home I'd ever built, and it would have been nice, to be perfectly honest, to build it cheaper and a little bit smaller. But the fact of the matter is I couldn't do it due to restricted covenants that are tied to that subdivision. And I don't begrudge the fact that, these the Fords have never heard of these before, probably because at the time the builder, it didn't suit the builder maybe to tell them. I don't know why. But I can't believe that it is only the builder's job to try to figure out that these restricted covenants are on there and then sort of enforce them. I mean, to say, I know Bill spoke that they're not enforceable. How is something that's tied to your subdivision not enforceable? Like if we had to deal with it, that's rules for the whole subdivision. And I can completely understand that, we want more housing for people. And I know that the Ford's mother, definitely having her close would be more ideal. And we don't necessarily want to stop that from happening. But the fact is that there were a lot of things in the building of that house over there that don't necessarily conform to the nature of our community out there. And there's 36 houses there that all did have to, or 35 that all did have to conform. And having that move, it's not necessarily like it's already built. So, we're not tearing them down. And, if you build a granny's flat there, it's not getting torn down either. Everybody recognizes that 20 years past, no one's going to come to you and say, hey, you got to tear that down. If rules are going to change, governments are going to come in, and then their governments are going to leave. And there's going to be just as much housing need in the future, probably more than there is now. And that being said, those covenants have sort of protected this neighborhood and the property values in this neighborhood and maintained these property values because of those rules. And I paid them and dealt with them because I recognize the long-term benefit to them. Other people in the neighborhood had see the long-term benefit to them as well. Now, I don't understand how those could not be enforceable. That being said, I had a couple other points. One, the disposition of that corner lot land. To be perfectly honest, I don't care that they have it. I mean, great. I'd love for you to plant more trees out there. Planting trees is fantastic. But in a neighborhood like that, it is important that the neighbors know what's going on, I feel like, because we have the greatest interest in that neighborhood. And so much so that area around the grass, around that retention pond at the end, that gets cut by the neighborhood. That doesn't get cut by the municipality, who should be cutting it. Because, we pay a fair bit of property tax out there, and the neighbors go around and cut all that grass. I called about it one time because it was getting about knee height, and they said, we only cut that once a year. Well, anyone that has children know that, or, gets down to a pond and recognizes that grass is at your knee level, that, you're getting ticks and you're getting everything else in it. So it needs to be cut more than that. As far as where was that posted, as far as that disposition of the land? Because there was no sign up there, that's for sure. I walk that neighborhood every single day. I drive it, every single day, and it definitely was not posted up there. Furthermore, there are definitely people in that neighborhood that did not get the notice for this. And I know that happened because, again, I'm in that neighborhood. I did get one, but many other people did. And I know Jane can maybe speak of this, that she had to print some off and give them to other people so that they knew what was going on. No one is necessarily trying to pull the wool over the Ford's eyes and what we want to happen there. We just want the neighborhood to stay sort of the neighborhood. So there are a couple of empty lots that are out there still, but we feel like the restricted covenants, we had to abide by them and everybody else should. And, with the empty lots, if they ever do get developed or built on, they should have to abide by those same rules as well. And as far the other thing about having the granny flat, and then, Bill basically said that you guys or nobody can do anything if somebody, let's say the Fords decide to sell their house. Let's say that after this meeting, they hate their neighbors now because they didn't want them to buy something and they decide to sell their house. Well, if they have a granny flat on there and their parents aren't going to be in it anymore, and now it becomes a bed and breakfast, everybody suffers from that. So Bill sort of already said that they can't kick anyone out for being in it. So how are we going to be able to sort of stop some of that stuff from happening? And in this situation, when it being the mother, obviously we would like them to be able to have that and be closer, but there is concerns anyways. And I know, Monica, you had mentioned, what's the major concern? Well, it's not one concern, it's many concerns. This is a neighborhood where everybody had to abide by a set of rules that it seemed like in this situation nobody cared about. And they probably didn't get cared about at the time because, one, maybe nobody knew they existed, and two, they suited someone else to not care about them at the time. I do appreciate you listening, and at the end of the day, again, we are not against the Fords, and all we want in that subdivision is good neighbors, people that care about each other, and people that go out of their way to be nice to each other. But in this situation, we just feel like it's important that at least council knows what our concerns are going forward. Thank you very much for your time.
And if I may, could you just state your address for the record?
35 Sparberry Street.
Thank you. Lindsay, did you want to speak to the question about where the advertisements would have landed?
Sure.
They're not required to be circulated as in this case, they had to be circulated within so many meters of the zoning.
Yeah, so, sorry if I may, Chair DeBreen.
Mhm.
So, yeah, the zoning for this zoning, that would have went to property owners within 120 meters. I can double check Jane's, but depending on her actual address, it should have caught it if she's right on Sparberry or Uncle Tom. If she's on Southgate Road 6, just depending where it lies, she may not be, but any property owner within 120 meters would have received the notice of the public meeting for the zoning. And that's we triple check our system and the county system for mailing addresses, and it's the same mailing address that tax bills get sent to. If there is people renting, unfortunately, they don't necessarily receive. It is the property owner that receives zoning. For the triangle piece of land, our policy doesn't, we don't put property like a for sale sign on. That's not how the process works. It gets circulated in newspapers and on our website and social media. So it did go into, Alicia, correct me if I'm wrong, the Wellington Advertiser, is that the paper? And it would have went into the Dundalk Herald as well, just because we try to hit both papers when we're circulating like that. And the notice would have went website and our social media. And it was through council, but if you're not following council, I could see why you wouldn't see it there, but it's not our practice to post a sign on the property. Now council can revise that policy if they wish for the future, but our process for surplus land is to declare surplus and advertise in the newspapers.
Okay. That's the process. That's the current process. And it has to come to council to declare it surplus. Then there's staff report, and then it gets advertised. Then there's another staff report. Yes. So there's quite a number of times that it comes to council, but as you said, we don't put a for sale sign on it. Martin, you had your hand up earlier. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Mainly just a comment. With every file we see in these public plannings or even committee of adjustment, they are individual files, and I liked Bill's comment. You know, they're outdated. What's temporary buildings are, you know, and as I said, by case, someone out in the rural area could, if it was done building code, could get a trailer put on blocks. You know, this is a totally different file. This is almost, I'm not going to call it a gated community because there's no gates, but it would be very interesting and probably helpful for the Fords, Justin, if you have a copy of what those
the restricted covenants.
Yeah, you know, because if they say they don't know, then I'm pretty sure they would have abided by it. But that's one thing to look at. But in the gated communities, if somebody wants to paint their garage door pink, you know, they'll have the rest of the community come down. That's what they're looking at. And I don't think the Fords are going to put up a ramshackle granny flat. They want to keep I would assume they want to do it as nice as possible and tie it into their house as much as they can, because they don't want their own property values. You mentioned that. They don't want their own property values to go down either. So it's an interesting file, but I do think if they've never heard of those covenants, and if they are binding by the builder, I think that should be part and parcel of the next round, because this is all about information gathering.
Does no one have the?
Hold on, just direct your, sorry, just hold on. I'll come back to you, Martin. Or you can.
Yeah, that's it. Like if this is all about getting information, and if they haven't heard of this, then it should all be for the next round. That's all I'm saying. So
no decision is being made today. This is information gathering, as you said. I will circle back to anyone else who wishes to speak with regard to this file. Justin, did you have a comment?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, and I just wanted to comment there for Martin is just, or maybe you guys can all answer this. Like, how is there no building? Does the chief building inspector or the chief building official not, you know, how is there no one around that even looks at the restricted covenants? Like, they're registered to the subdivision. They register the plan of subdivision. Does no one look at them and say, hey, you know, does the planner not say, hey, you can't do this? It says right here.
We'll be looking into that.
Okay.
Okay, are there any other members of Monica?
Hi there. Yes, thank you so much. And yeah, just through you, Chair, just to speak to Justin. When I was asking about the concerns, it was plural, so I do understand it's not one major concern. I just want to kind of surmise what was the general thing there. So I do thank you for sharing your concerns, and which I fully understand and take to heart. And just to remind that, you know, changes can indeed bring challenges, but it can also present opportunities for improvements and growth. And so the proposal is being carefully considered to ensure it aligns with our community long-term vision, ensuring that we balance development with the preservation of our area's unique character, which I'm hearing you say as well, that you want to preserve. So just by integrating new elements like a garden suite, and you know, we not only aim to enhance the housing options, but also to enrich our communities with diverse living solutions that can benefit all residents. And I mean, we all have parents that get older, and trying to understand how to navigate those things in this time. So just our goal is to move forward together just to ensure that our neighborhoods remain vibrant and a welcoming place for current and future generations. But while that, I just wanted to kind of speak to your comments and your heart of and everything that you were just sharing, to completely understand. And we'll, like the chair just mentioned, that we'll continue to look into seeing what you know, kind of working together on all these files, and just like Councilor Shipson said as well.
Okay. If there are no other comments from other members of council or the public, I will declare this file complete and declare the public portion of the meeting adjourned at 2:22 p.m.